Rebecca, it's great to have you on our podcast. And I know you have an incredible story to share with others. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot that would inspire others to do things along their journey, if they haven't done so already. So, with that being said, I'd like to have you start off with somewhere in your life, just sharing, where you started to get to where you are today. And you can decide on where that time, age, what it is for you.
Cool, thank you. I'm super excited to talk to you today. I think my entire journey I would probably call it taking agency. And I feel like I've been taking agency of my life from a really young age until now. Um and really my story and the reason I recently published a book and all of that. My story started about 6 years ago in Dubai. I was 47 and I went in for a typical, very, quote, "routine" surgical procedure, which was, to remove a fibroid tumor, no big deal, these are simple, and that surgery went terribly wrong for lots of reasons, and the medical trauma that I experienced coming out of that surgery, and I slipped into ovarian failure, and then I slipped into metabolic syndrome, which is pretty horrible, and your whole system just shuts down, collapses. And through all of that, my early childhood trauma just bloomed. And I thought that I had reconciled it. I thought that I'd done a good job of thinking through it, talking through it, therapying myself, through it. Turns out I hadn't. So I really had to go back to the beginning of my trauma journey, my trauma story to get to where I am today, which is, in a much more healed space and a happier space.
So where was that the trauma? Where did that start?
So I was assaulted at the age of 5, and that continued until the age of 13. I was assaulted by my maternal grandfather, and no one knew. No one, people looked the other way when things would happen, but by and large, no one knew the really gritty details, what was going on. And when I was 13, I finally summoned the energy and the courage to fight back. And that essentially stopped the assaults from continuing. Out of that 8 years of assault, I developed dissociative identity disorder, multiple personality disorder. And I developed four very distinct personalities in addition to my present self. They were called 5, 6, 7, and 13. And they all had their own voice, their own way of thinking, talking, feeling. And when I got into high school, I really started to recognize each voice in my head as an individual entity. And I was kind of uh, was taken over by a couple of them in particular, 7 and 13. And it made things complicated.
And are they from sorry about the assault, and I appreciate sharing that part with everybody because it does happen a lot and nobody really comes out, right? Um,
Yeah.
the multiple personalities, the numbers, were they significant for a reason?
Yeah, so, I gave them their names based on their age. When I figured out how old the voices were, 5 was my fear, that was the first time I was, assaulted.
Mhm.
6, I learned about much, much later in my healing journey, in fact, just a year ago, I learned about 6, and my shame attached itself to 6. 7 was my sadness, in addition to being assaulted, my parents went through a really toxic divorce around that time, and there was just an overwhelming sense of sadness and betrayal. And then 13 was my anger, and she was given life when I fought back. And she was the alter, the personality that really would take over. And I was angry first. That was my first emotion for everything was anger. Um, really complicated.
Would you say it was like that all the way up to the age of 47 where you started to change?
I understood that they existed in high school. I didn't know what to do about them or what they were called or anything. I just knew that they were not myself. Um, and I went into therapy, and I'd been to therapy over the years, knowing that they existed, kind of learning how to tolerate them, put up with them. And then when I had the surgery in Dubai, and I was 47, and they were still very present, still very busy with in my head. And it wasn't until I went into a somatic environment for healing where I actually began to understand that I could approach them, reconcile with them, integrate them, and release them, which I ultimately was able to do.
Okay, so you're I don't know much about this, so you were able to, like, talk them out of you? Like, they disappear?
So yeah, so the way I would describe it is disassociation is what we're talking about, a really extensive level of disassociation. Like you might disassociate at a stop sign and not remember driving home all the way, for example. We all disassociate for different reasons. I my disassociation, I was an overachiever, and my mind created pieces of myself to live. I would describe it outside of myself to protect me, because the truth and the brutality that it trapped inside 5 and 6 and 7 and 13 was just too much to handle. So my mind kind of broke these pieces off, and they lived outside of me, outside of my present self. And the only way that I know of to bring those pieces of me back into myself and to be a whole person again, to have one voice and to have one tone, was to first reconcile with them. And through somatic experiences, which are really deep guided meditations, I met them in a meadow, and I said hello to them, got to understand their story, and ultimately figured out that they really just wanted to be loved and to be reassured that it was safe. And as I loved them and reassured them and listened to them, in one kind of really pivotal session, they literally all came back to me and integrated with me. And I remember telling my somatic healer at the time, like, I can see 13 and she's elbowing for room inside of me. And it was really uncomfortable. It's like I had a new skin. It's really interesting.
So you became whole? Is that how you would word it?
Yeah, that's the perfect word for it. I was whole once again, but it wasn't finished because those energy, basically, this misplaced, misguided energy was, now that they were back inside of me, then they were integrated. I had to convince them that they were no longer needed. These are just really strong defense mechanisms, right? Defensive energies. And I had to really go out of my way to convince them, I don't need you anymore, and I'm going to be okay. So, um, it took a long time to convince them. The little ones, 5, 6, and 7, were kinda easily convinced. They're little. They're tiny children, so as long as they felt loved and at peace, they were okay. 13 was not easy to convince, and she was ultimately very afraid for the little ones and what was gonna happen and how it was gonna be safe, and it was all about this concern about safety and feeling safe, and eventually, I kinda used some tough love with her. She's a teenager. She's a bit stroppy, so I had to get a bit stroppy with her, and then showed her a lot of love because I had to remember that she was just as hurt as the others. And ultimately, I released them, and what that looked like to me inside my somatic experience was I was in a deep meditation, and uh, my dad's mother, my late grandmother, she showed up, and she said, "It's time for them to go." And I was like, "Wait a minute, what do you mean? I'm not sure I'm ready. I don't what does this mean?" And 7, who turned out to be the ringleader of them all, she said, "It's fine. You're gonna be fine. It's time for us to go." And then they left, and I haven't heard from them since.
Incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so your journey to getting rid of them, I mean, it doesn't sound like, I mean, did it take long? It doesn't sound like it, but maybe I'm not I'm not seeing the time frame here.
I mean, I first recognized them when I was a teenager, and I reconciled and released them when I was 52. So
Right,
it
but
took,
so
you know,
yeah, so it was around 47 that you still had that trauma, you knew that you still had that trauma,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
yeah. So you recognized it then, right? And then
And then I started the somatic process, and 5 years later, I released them. But it was, it was off and on. I was doing somatic work when I lived in Kenya, then I moved to Singapore, so I did it some more, and then I came back to States, and I finished that particular part of the journey. So
interesting. So do you feel like that they held you back in a way all the way up, you know, through age 47 or whatever it was?
yeah, they're what's I think the best way to describe it is that from the age of 5 until the age of 52, I lived my life through trauma's lens. So every decision I made was affected by my trauma and driven my decision making was driven by these personalities. So if I wanted to do something as simple as has an ice cream, for example, when I was 27 years old or 50, I would say, I'm going to go buy some ice cream today. And I would immediately hear from all four of them. Are you sure you want to do that? Aren't you fat? Is that really gonna be a good idea? Is it safe to go inside the grocery store? Like, I would hear this cacophony of voices that were very real to me, and to be able to live my life for the first 40, well, 45 years through that lens was really, damaging. My relationship I chose, toxic relationships. I was, because I was kinda locked in with 13 for most of the time, I was overly brash and aggressive in business and, really kind of inappropriate environments, and I couldn't help it. I couldn't control it. So, it was it's hard to say, you know, that they were 100% damaging only because I am a film and executive producer, film, TV content producer, and I've seen the world, I've traveled the world, I've lived all over the world, and I'm really good at running film sets. So part of that, it was, trying to live with traumas for finding a way to make it work for you in a way, I suppose. And so I don't know if I had not had DID and had not gone through that experience, I don't know what my life would have looked like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You mm. So so what just real quick, on your, you releasing them from you and becoming whole again, what kind of process was that?
I was all somatic work, and somatic work for I think a lot of people don't really totally understand what it is you go into any kind of therapeutic room, and there's usually a massage table or an acupuncture table you lie down on, and you get comfortable. Um, and you're guided into a really deep meditative state by your somatic coach. And really, you're relaying information to your coach or your healer, and they're telling you what to do with information. So if I would say, um, my coach might say, well, where are you right now? I'm in the meadow. The meadow was my safe place. It's where I did a lot of my healing in my head. Okay, well, who do you want to talk to today? I need to talk to seven some more. We're not finished yet. So in those environments, I would continue conversations with the altars. I confronted my grandfather a couple of different times by myself and then with the altars, and we pummeled him. Uh, and a lot of that need to, I don't know, feel my anger and release my anger and all of my frustration happened inside my mind, inside the meadow. And that's what the somatic process does, is it recognizes that trauma by and large starts in your flesh, and your flesh receives the information, and then your mind interprets that information. And whereas the flesh could never manipulate the information, your flesh can't decide, well, you were assaulted, but it wasn't that bad. Your flesh can't do that. It only knows the truth. Your mind will go out of its way to try to maybe minimize, forget, reinterpret the event to help you survive.
Mhm.
And the somatic experience is getting your mind and your body to accept one truth and to live, you know, together. Um, and that's really what the experience is about. And then releasing that negative energy, or whatever you want to describe it, from your body, from your flesh, from your mind, you know. And
Yeah,
that's what I did.
that that's great, and I'm glad it worked out for you. Is there a reason why you were in all these countries and were you doing it there and then somewhere else for a reason, or was it just like online or something like that? You know what I mean?
No, that's a good question. I tend I tended to live a lot of my life in flight. So when I left Southern California, where I was born, I went to DC, New York, Egypt, ended up in Kenya, living and working in these places, Dubai and Singapore. So I was seeking out healing wherever I was living. At the time, it happened to be Kenya, and then I ended up in Singapore, then came back to the States. So
But you found people that knew the same stuff in all these countries? Is
yeah, it's interesting. I didn't even know what somatic work was. I just happened to know that after my surgery, when my mental health was sliding rapidly kind of into oblivion, it was a really dark space and time for me. I sought out a friend of mine who's a medium, and I loved talking to her, and I really enjoyed being around her. And I said, "Can I just come and talk to you about some stuff?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." I had no idea she was a somatic healer. I didn't know she was, a life coach. I didn't know any of that. But as I got to know her, she got to know me, we went into the somatic process, and that's where it started, and then I picked it up again in Singapore, and it's all kind of the same thing, like talk therapy is talk therapy, somatic work is somatic work. You can pick it up anywhere you want, and it's the same process.
Okay. That's probably what was needed is you traveling and meeting all these new people to help you out. I
Yeah,
you know?
they had different styles. So my friend, healer in Kenya, she's French, she's wonderful, very what just really powerful, wonderful. My healer in Singapore, the sessions with her were more just profound in a way that they built off of what I started in Kenya. And in Singapore is where I integrated the altars. I had a huge breakthrough. And then my healer in Los Angeles, when I came back to America, she was just brutally honest and wonderfully to the point. And she was a bit more physical. So when I was having a session and I was being very emotional about the fact that I'd lost my uterus as a part of the surgery in Dubai and all this loss of motherhood and stuff, she would physically massage my abdomen, and all this well of emotion just kept coming up. So they all have their specialties and their differences, but the fundamentals are the same.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so you traveled the world and you were saying you were into film and producer and stuff. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I started my advertising career when I was 19 in Southern California, and over the years, I developed my career and took on the role of an executive producer and started producing in addition to ad campaigns for North America. When I moved overseas, I started to also produce feature films and TV shows and documentaries and all kinds of content, really. And then when I got into Kenya, I developed more content, but I also established several companies that were all content related. So sound and editing and film and all of that. And I mean, it's an extraordinary career to live inside the creative economy. It's really fun. And I'm grateful that I got the chance to do it because I've seen, I've been to over 100 countries. I've seen a lot. I've gotten to meet some extraordinary people as a film producer and storyteller that I'm not sure I would have met had I just gone as a tourist. So
And so are you still producing now? Is that what you're currently doing?
I thought I was finished and I because COVID really threw a wrench into everything. As you can imagine, all the film sets were shut down and that industry took a major hit. But it seems that just recently, a client has reached out and they want me to come back and into the Middle East and Africa, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I thought I was finished, but I guess I'm not. So
With that being said, outside of that, what are you currently doing then?
well, I self-published the 2 books earlier this year, my memoir and then a journal about starting your own healing journey uh, through trauma. And I'm engaging really fun things like being on podcasts, which I never thought I would do, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm blogging more, writing more. I have another book in the works. I have 2 books in the works, actually. It's a book. I wrote a book about when I lived in Egypt and what that was like, which is really interesting because I was 30, didn't know anything about anything, and still living through a traumatized lens through life. So that's kind of interesting to read now and to look and see where I was. And then I have another book that's in the works, and it's about expat life and travel tips and funny stories. And I think that more people are excited about that book than any other book.
Are they?
Yeah. Nobody really is excited to read my memoir because it's not it's a good read. It's a I think an inspirational read. And certainly the end of it is hopeful, but it's obviously a difficult read compared to travel tips and funny expat stories about going through the Congo. So
I hear you. Yeah, but I'm sure your story, your journey, like you just shared with us, would probably relate to a lot of people out there. So, you coming on here and other podcasts, whatever platforms you're running and your book and stuff you got going, it would help a lot of people. Um, just sharing the information that you have and how you went through it. It's an incredible story. So you keep going, don't stop, whatever you're
yeah,
doing.
I'll keep
Uh,
going.
yeah. So, how can somebody reach out to you and get a hold of your books or memoir or whatever you got going on?
You can go to my website, RebeccaEChandler.com. Don't forget the E in the middle. Otherwise, you're going to get a art director's website. That's not me.
Okay.
But I like her stuff, so it's all right. And I think the most important thing for me right now is to try, especially coming into May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm really focusing right now on trying to reassure anyone that I meet or can talk to that I've talked to people and I find that they're afraid of therapy. They're afraid of talking about their trauma and going through that process. And I just think it's important for people to remember that therapy is the one environment where you actually get to control your narrative. You get to control how you tell your story, what words you use, and the information that you share in those therapeutic environments is locked, right? It can't be shared, it can't be discussed, it can't be questioned or doubted like maybe your family might do. And so actually I think if people go into any kind of therapeutic environment, EMDR, somatic work, talk therapy, CBT, all these different modalities out there, just remember that I found it really comforting to know that I was finally able to share my truth and that I controlled how it was shared. And I think hang on to that. If you're thinking about going to therapy, if you've got some medical trauma, if you've been in a car accident, if you came out of a different kind of environment, just hang on to the fact that it's the one place where you're actually in control.
That's a good way to put it. I never heard it like that before. Um, so would you have any suggestions or advice to those people that might be hanging in there of trying to go into therapy? You know what I mean? Like, is there something like you would tell them, like push them a little bit?
The first thing I would tell them is you're not alone.
Hmm.
Just Google the statistics alone. It'll tell you that you're not alone. In North America, in your state, in your city, in your county, whatever trauma you've got, medical trauma, sexual trauma, whatever, you're not alone. Pick up a copy of a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which will absolutely explain how trauma is received in the body and what your body does with it to try to manage it and how it affects you. It gives you a really fundamental understanding of it, which I think is super helpful. And then there are amazing resources, go to psychology.com, I think, and they have a search tool for you to find a practitioner near you that's could be low cost, no cost, sliding scale. The challenge with I think with mental health work, and I suppose with any kind of physical ailment, is that you really do have to summon the energy from somewhere, and I know it's hard to take agency of what's happening or what's happened to you and to get help. And so find an advocate, find one person that encourages you and supports you and doesn't ask questions and doesn't doubt your story. Find one person, and that person could be a friend, family, clergy, someone. But find someone who can stand with you and go to doctor's appointments with you, go to a therapy appointment with you, just help you feel safe. And you will make it. You'll make it through it.
Yeah, I believe people have that fear of asking for help because they think they're afraid to get it out there that there is something wrong with them, or, they think there's something wrong with them. Uh,
Yeah.
that's how I see it sometimes, and so people sit back and they don't go try to get help when they could have a long time ago and could have been down a different road, you know what I mean? Uh,
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
I lived 45 years through a traumatized lens where I didn't make great decisions and I had compulsive disorders like compulsive eating and compulsive spending that affected my life negatively. So do I want to live another 50 years like that? No. So, the next 5 years is going to pass regardless of whether or not you get into therapy or not. So how do you want to spend the next 5 years? Happier, more content, or in the same traumatized state? Because the 5 years is going to pass no matter what you do.
you're
So,
yeah.
you know,
That you can make a change now or don't make a change at all, you know what I mean?
it's still
It's
going to
late.
be 2028 someday. So,
Exactly. Yeah, I
yeah.
totally get it. Yep, totally agree with you. No, it's great for what you're doing and sharing everything you got. So I do ask everybody the same question at the end, and what are 3 key things that you've learned and used along your journey?
Three things. It's important to learn how to trust yourself and trust your instincts. Listen to that voice and listen to sounds kind of funny. Listen to the voice inside of you telling you if something is safe or unsafe, balanced or unbalanced. Listen to that instinct. There's a reason it exists. Pay attention to it. Um, Try to remember that the trauma is over. And although your mind and your body might still feel like it's still happening, it's not. And try to remember that it's over. Hopefully it's over. It's important that your mind and body know that it's over. And the third thing is that life is not all gloomy. Life is hopeful and happy. And certainly I've met extraordinary people. I've got friends all over the world. I am blessed for the people I have in my life, and I do have happiness and joy. So, um, it's remember to practice gratitude and remember to feel some joy. Don't forget that.
It's great. I totally agree with the grateful, being
Yeah.
grateful for things. Yeah. Um, so outside of that, is there anything else you like to share?
No, I hope that people know that life can be better.
Mhm.
And you can be free from your past and you can not be so bogged down and weighed down by it. And you just have to take that first really small step. And the first step is just admitting you have trauma, just to yourself, and maybe writing it on a piece of paper. And the moment you can admit it, the moment you can write it down, then you've started something, you know? When you stop resisting it and you start accepting it, then you can release it. So,
That's great. I totally agree with you. Um, that it's that one first step, that's the
mm,
usually the hardest step, and then it's you just get the ball rolling, what whether it's the trauma or anything else, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just what it is. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I get that. Yeah. Well, Rebecca, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your incredible story with everybody. And you know, everybody check out her books, whatever she's got going on, the trips.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see how that goes. And no, thanks for coming on. It was great to talk.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome.